Everybody asks me why I'm up so late, man. They think I'm insane, I just wanna create, man. No angel dust till the boy cremated. In heaven with Mr. Cobain, see dated. But that's not for a long time. Cardi for the long nights, party for the hard times. On time at the wrong time. Why the fuck would I try to quantize my jawline? Speeding on the feeder, cause I promised I'd be on time. And I said it last time, it's gotta be the last time. You can play this song if you ever got a bad vibe. Say I'm acting moody cause I've been stuck like Mad Eye. Miss the times when I had nap time and snack time. I style like Billy cause she say I'm a bad guy. She say waste my time just writing all these rap lines. Said she crossed the line and I promise that's the last time. Used to play Angry Birds, man, I was mad fly. Different day, I'm just trying to get paid. Yeah. I'ma stay in the shade so they can't see my face. Yeah. Only blow if I know that I got the right strain. Yeah. When I blow, then I know that I did it my way. Yeah.
Feeling gone, message of stocks at the sex stone. Max got the tracks, lost his mind and his headphones. They just call me broke cause I still use the wire cards. She asked for my number, damn, I think they should retire me. Feeling gone, message of
Hello, and welcome to the Engineering Success Podcast, episode 33. I am your host, Daniel, and I am happy to be here. I think that what's going on is that the podcast is having a little bit of issues with the stream quality. I don't know why that's the case, but I will figure that out. Anyways, I'm happy to be here. It's January, January 15th as I speak right now. And you know what? It looks like 50% of our frames are dropping. So I'm gonna try to fix that. I don't know what's going on with my internet. Um, Shout out to Cox. That's the name of my internet provider. My goodness, 50% of frames are being dropped. What the heck? Um, you know what? I'm going to step away for a moment and I will figure it out. Sorry.
We miscommunicating, I'm miscommunicating. I just made a pilot, then they threw me on the stations. Now I'm not complaining, My thoughts get complicated, I cannot explain in layman's. Never losing focus because I ain't chasing payments. Still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries, thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify, they put me on the station. Same shit, different day, I'm slow if I know that I got the right strain. Yeah. When I blow, then I know that I did it my way. Yeah. Everybody asks me why I'm up so late, man. They think I'm insane, I just wanna create, man. No angel dust till the boy cremated. In heaven with Mr. Cobain, see dated. But that's not for a long time. Cardi for the long nights, party for the hard times. On time at the wrong time. Why the fuck would I try to quantize my jawline? Speeding on the feeder cause I promised I'd be on time. And I said it last time, it's gotta be the last time. You can play this song if you ever got a bad vibe. Say I'm acting moody cause I've been stuck like Mad Eye. Miss the times when I had nap time and snack time. I style like Billy cause she say I'm a bad guy. She say waste my time just writing all these rap lines. Said she crossed the line and I promise that's the last time. Used to play Angry Birds, man, I was mad fly. Different day, I'm just trying to get paid. Yeah. I'ma stay in the shade so they can't see my face. Yeah. Only blow if I did it my way. Yeah.
feeling gone, message of stocks at the sex stone. Max got the tracks, lost his mind and his headphones. They just call me broke cause I still use the wire cards. She asked for my number, damn, I think they should retire me. Feeling gone, message of
All right, and we're back. Hello, everybody. My name is Daniel, and this is Engineering Success, episode 33. Hope you're doing all right. Things are good for me here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Life is pretty good, I'd have to say. I have no major complaints. We've entered the Carnival season, as they say, or as I'm butchering here in New Orleans. And what it means is that we have our lovely, lovely, lovely Mardi Gras season coming up. So, very excited to have some friends come and visit me from Mardi Gras. So, shout out to my friends. And yeah, we're gonna do a brunch tonight. So I'm brunch, no, potluck dinner type thing tonight. Yeah. So, anyways, I've been drowning myself in king cake, eating a lot of food, gaining a lot of weight, working a lot. But generally, life is pretty good for me. I hope life is going good for you guys. Feel free to let me know how you're doing down in the comments below. We are streaming live, so we currently have 0 viewers, which is sick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly share the podcast. Um, oh, I don't know why the header photo says it's episode 32 because it's 100% episode 33. I don't know. I'll fix that later. But let me just share it on Snapchat. Um, and share it on Snapchat again. Episode 33 of the Engineering Success podcast is live. Join on in. Let's see if people come and join us. We're very fun here on the Engineering Success podcast. All right. So, anyways, that's what's going on. But let's go ahead and start out the podcast with some shout outs. So, first of all, shout out to our boy John Ott. Thank you, John, for your support of the podcast and for continuing to support the podcast every single month. Join John Ott by supporting the podcast on Anchor or Patreon. If you go into the description box of this episode of the podcast, you'll see that there's instructions on how you too can support the podcast. And if you support the podcast by donating $10 a month, I will give you a shout out in every single episode at the very beginning of every single episode. It's pretty affordable for those of you advertisers out there that are looking for advertisement. I'd say that $10 to have your name or your product or your people listed at the beginning of every single one of my episodes of my podcast in perpetuity is pretty cool. So make sure you do that. Also, shout out to our website. I'm going to show y'all something pretty cool here. So if you go into your google.com and you type in www.engsuccess.com, you will see something pretty freaking cool. This is what you'll see. You'll see the web page for the Engineering Success Podcast. And what you'll see is that I will have uploads of the latest episodes of the podcast. You have the links to Anchor and Patreon to support the podcast. You can even sign up for a subscription to get notified each time I publish either a blog post or an episode of the podcast. All of that gets uploaded here and you can see a little bit of description about who I am, see what I'm doing on Twitter. Yeah, I'm working on the website. It's very new, but and you can see reviews, and you can even again sign up to stay in touch and see all the links to all my social medias. So it's pretty cool. I paid for a domain because I just love sinking money into this podcast that makes me no money. Um, but it's my hobby. It's something that I enjoy. It's something fun. So I appreciate your support. And what you can see is you can see podcast. You can see an article I wrote on what are credit hours, which, oh, I guess I got to get rid of that. But we'll talk more about what credit hours are later. And yeah, I just kind of make posts about career and stuff like that. So make sure to support the podcast by checking out our webpage, ENGiNGsuccess.com. There's episodes. And as you saw flashing up on the screen earlier, the new way to contact, you can still reach me at engring.success@gmail.com, but you can also reach me at Daniel at engringsuccess.com. Daniel at engineeringsuccess.com. So yeah, give me a. So I'm most excited about Mardi Gras, but let me know down in the chat what you are most excited about right now. All right, well, let's get into the podcast. It wouldn't be an episode of Engineering Success Podcast without our good old friend, LinkedIn Lunatics. So let's get into it. And for those of you who haven't heard of LinkedIn Lunatics is a subreddit on reddit.com. And it's a really, really, really fun subreddit because what it does is it just shows the absolute utter chaos that's happening in our land of LinkedIn. It is absolute chaos what's happening in LinkedIn. We have LinkedIn is just basically a worse version of Facebook so far, and also you got a bunch of people that are just posting some absolutely cringy content on there. So uh, it's my job as the host of the Engineering Success Podcast to bring all that cringe content to light. So here is the first one. Just got laid off, offer to work for free. We've seen a lot in Utah this week. If you were recently laid off, here's what I'd do. 1. Don't apply to jobs. It's a joke. You won't be seen, replied to, etc. 2. Build a list of 30 companies where you'd fit or they'd have a need for your skill. 3. Offer to help for free. Figure out how to help with at that stage of the company. You could build a template, cold call script, sequence, write a blog post, build a dashboard, help with Salesforce, etc. Reach out to CEOs and VPs there with a helping message. Hey, CEO, I was recently laid off. With my downtime, I'm hoping to hone my skills in whatever you can do and want to practice doing it with other companies. Could I help you with whatever you do for free? When you get a reply, execute as fast as you can with the highest quality. Worst case scenario, you'll learn more skills to add to your story. Network with people who know a lot of other people who could use your skills. Get a paid consulting gig. Get a full-time job, or get told no, which you can ask for a referral. Okay, so that was a lot. Don't apply for jobs. It's a joke. You won't be seen. Not sponsored by Coca-Cola, by the way. Um, if you get laid off, I would recommend applying to new jobs, especially if you want to find a new place of employment. That's for sure. And working for free, what I'd say is honestly treat getting your new job like a full-time job. And this person's methodologies for that is working for free. But what they're saying, basically what they're saying is adding to your portfolio. And I get where they're going with this. Um, but and some people do it with like personal projects and other people do it with I guess apparently working for free for other companies. I think that the likelihood that you find a company that isn't like a startup that's willing to kind of accept some work from you like this is difficult. So I don't know if I really would offer to work for free. Maybe I mean you say end up with a paid consulting gig. Maybe even I don't know. Hear me out. Why don't you just pitch yourself as a consultant for paid consulting gigs instead of offering to work for free? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't fully agree um, with this person. I get what they're going at, right? You want to build your portfolio, but you can build your portfolio by building onto your website. Sorry, you can build your portfolio by yeah, and offering services as a consultant, but working for free and say, hey, use me, work me for free. I don't necessarily agree with that. So I get where they're going with it, but I just don't fully agree. And so, I mean, a lot of people are absolutely going in on this guy. They're saying, frankly, any company that accepts random cold messages, people looking to work for free is a major red flag. The only exception I can think of is charities. Yeah, maybe build your portfolio and do stuff for a charity that you support and you believe in, and then add that to your portfolio. But Yes, continue to apply for jobs. Continue to leverage your connections. Reach out to the people you know in the industry. Say, hey, can you help me out? Can you help me network into a job? I would to advise against doing that is, in my opinion, kind of reckless. Here's a good one. I'd happily do your accounts payable for free. Just send me your bank login info and I'll get churning. I'll get cold calling customers, an agent of your company, and selling right away. Don't worry about my knowledge of the product or training or regulatory compliance. It'll be fine. Hey, I'm going to take your trademarked images and logos and make a blog. That's going to make me more employable, right? I mean, yeah. and then, and then you're just making them, yeah, doing a blog for them is like, I mean, no real company is going to want some person that doesn't know anything about the company, hasn't been trained, has no compliance or anything like that, writing a blog to be the formal communications of that company. So yeah, I don't think that that's the best advice. So what I'll say is, I think that whenever you get laid off, it's important to just kind of follow the general recommendations instead of trying to, you know what I mean? It just that's just not ideal. Uh, so I'd give them an 8 out of 10 on the scale of LinkedIn to lunatic. All right. Yeah, again, this podcast is not sponsored by Coke, but if you're watching the video version, I am drinking a Coke. And just a quick anecdote here. I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but when I was a kid, I hated Coke. And the more I started drinking coffee, the more I realized that I liked Coke. And maybe it's just the way that you drink, coffee is like it's a different pace, right? When I was a kid, I was like, I want lemonade, like sugar water, and I just freaking gulp that stuff down. And now that I drink coffee like 3 or 4 cups a day, I also like Coke. And I feel like the pace at which you drink a Coca Cola is like very similar to like the pace that you drink a coffee. If you haven't thought about this, just like maybe the next time you have Coke and you have coffee, kind of observe yourself. But the occasional small little savory sip of a Coca Cola is and has become very pleasant for me. So Coke. The next one is this is a doozy. Titled "Let Me Take Pride in Toxic Work Culture." I'm gonna go past this guy's name. I work on weekends. For me, it's just another day. The thing is, weekends are man made. If you have energy to work on weekends, why take rest? Just because it's the weekend? I read this somewhere. Weekends are an act of corporate trickery, a dangling carrot that keeps workers tethered to their jobs. Don't let the matrix trick you. Okay, this is just kind of all over the place. Um, I mean, maybe this man is a startup and he's like grinding every. I mean, if you count the stuff that I do for this podcast, I guess yes, I work on weekends, and this is kind of a continuous churn. So maybe for a startup that makes sense, but no, as an employee of a company that thankfully has a nine to Monday through Friday 5 day work week, thanks to lots of progress that has happened in society. Thanks. Yeah, no, I'm appreciative of my weekends off, and I will not be working weekends unless I absolutely have to. So yeah, I will rest because it's the weekend. Because you need rest. You're gonna burn yourself out if you're constantly working every single minute of every single day. It's just gonna it's the quickest route to burnout. So I'd say no, no. This. If you work for an employer, I'd say that this is absolutely terrible advice. And I don't let the matrix trick you. Okay, don't. Is this like a quote? No. I mean, maybe we could watch this video about how not to become a bot by X Neptune on YouTube. But no, don't let the Matrix fool you. No, there's nothing about this. This is not a thing. Okay, so here's what I'd say about this bad boy, or this LinkedIn post. It doesn't make sense. I don't understand the advice here. So yeah, the working week is also man-made. And to be fair, we as people are also okay. I gotta see this. The working week is also man-made. To be fair, we as people are all. That's not ideal, man. So here's what I'd say. I'd say this is terrible advice. 10 out of 10. LinkedIn lunatic. For me, it's just another day. No, for me, it's my day of rest. So thank you, buddy. On to the next one. Next one is not sure who's crazier, the poster or the 19% of people who think it's okay to cold call on Christmas. So I don't know if any of y'all realize this, but we recently had a holiday called Christmas. And this guy uh, said, should you cold call on Christmas Day? Was a poll on LinkedIn. He said, I've seen a lot of heavy debate about this on LinkedIn recently. What do you think? 19% of, well, first of all, he asked the question, which is just no. The answer is no. No, you shouldn't cold call on Christmas Day. It's like a 1 p.m. That's even worse. That's like that's before 1 p.m. on Christmas. That's whenever I'm like opening gifts with my family, having my family's breakfast. So no, it's not okay to cold call on Christmas. If somebody cold called me on Christmas, I would blacklist that company because their values don't align with the values that I want. That's not a hustle. It's not a sign of like dedication. It's a sign of insanity. And it's not what I want to work with. So, yeah. OMG, I can't think of a quicker way to make me avoid your product purely for the principle. Hate the words grind. Oh, sorry. I shouldn't have drank a Coke. I hate the words grind and hustle. Overused, silly. Let's crush this. Let's try to leverage this comment thread. Yeah, no, ridiculous. And there were like 1,000 votes. So that means like 200 people said, yeah, you should cold call on Christmas Day. Maybe, just maybe he was like filtering this out so that way he could see the people that said yes, so that way he could personally cold call them on Christmas Day. I don't know. But yeah, kind of crazy. Kind of crazy. So yes, I give this one an 11 out of 10 on the LinkedIn lunatic scale. Again, LinkedIn lunatic is just the name of the subreddit. I'm not calling these people lunatics, but this is insane. So no, you should not cold call on Christmas Day. If you cold call me, I got one of those extended. I even got one of those extended car warranty scam calls on Christmas Day. I mean, these people don't rest. But gosh, no, no, stop it. Don't cold call on Christmas. So, all right. Well, that's been our segment of LinkedIn Lunatics. I will take a quick breather to get a beverage that is not Coca-Cola so I don't keep on burping, and then I will be right back. So we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back.
We miscommunicating, I miscommunicating. I just made a pilot, then they threw me on the stations. Nah, I'm not complaining, My thoughts get complicated, I cannot explain in layman's. Never losing focus because I ain't chasing payments. Still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries, thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify, they put me on the station. Same shit, different day, I'm just trying to get paid. Yeah. I'ma stay in the shade so they can't see my face. Yeah. Only blow if I know that I got the right strain. Yeah. When I blow, then I know that I did it my way. Yeah. Everybody asks me why I'm up so late, man. They think I'm insane, I just wanna create, man. No angel dust till the boy cremated in heaven with Mr. Mr. Cobain, see, dated, but that's not for a long time. Cardi for the long nights, party for the hard times. On time at the wrong time. Why the fuck would I try to quantize my jawline? Speeding on the feeder, cause I promised I'd be on time. And I said it last time, it's gotta be the last time. You can play this song if you ever got a bad vibe. Say I'm acting moody, cause I've been stuck like Mad Eye. Miss the times when I had nap time and snack time. I style like Billy, cause she say I'm a bad guy. She said waste my time just writing all these rap lines. Said she crossed the line and I promise that's the last time. Used to play Angry Birds, man, I was mad fly. Different day, I'm just trying to get paid. Yeah. I'ma stay in the shade so they can't see my face. Yeah. Only blow if I know that I got the right strain. Yeah. When I blow, then I know that I did it my way. Yeah.
And we're back. So if you were listening to the audio podcast, then you should have gotten an ad there. Hopefully, we are still getting ads on the podcast in the time that you're listening to it. And if you're watching on the video version, you might notice I forgot to shave, so you're welcome. All right. Well, that was LinkedIn Lunatics. Let's get into the meat of the podcast. I did a little bit more research recently, and I made a fun little slideshow on what are credit hours in college. So I forgot to pull it up. And even in that break time, I didn't pull it up. So give me a breather and I will pull it up real quick. Let's go. Let's go here. And you're going to just have to bear with me because I I messed up and I did not put it in full screen whenever I decided to present. So let's see what this looks like. It's in Canva. So you're going to just have to see it in Canva. So I was thinking about like things that whenever I was in high school were really confusing to me. And one of the things that was kind of confusing to me when I was in high school, when I was like thinking about like going to school for engineering, is this concept that was talked about all the time. And people just talked about it with me, like they just assumed that I understood it. And I didn't really actually fully understand this concept until after I got to college, which if you ask me is kind of crazy, right? Like like people just kind of expect you to know what credit hours are and they talk about college in the terms of credit hours, but most of the kids in high school don't know what credit hours are. So unless you take like dual credit or something like that. But so I created this video to talk about what are credit hours. And I'm hoping that those of you that are still in high school that are listening or watching can learn a little bit about what credit hours are. So what are credit hours? So credit hours are basically one of the most critical things for you to understand whenever it comes to planning out your college experience, whenever you're transitioning from high school to college to go study for engineering. And what they are is they are a measurement for the hours you spend in class for a course. So typically, 1 credit hour equals 1 hour in class. Now, there are a couple exceptions to this. For example, I took a physical education class that met 3 hours a week, but it counted for 1 credit hour because it was actually the university doing me a solid because of something that I'll explain later. But um, and then also some of my lab courses, I would spend 3 hours in class, but it would count for 1 credit hour. But for the most part, your general classes, the ratio is 1 credit hour equals 1 hour in class. And the reason why that's important is they are the basis of your payment. So again, I said the university was doing me a solid. They're making me basically not have to pay as much for my PE class because it was 1 credit hour. Um, they also are for planning and studying, and they also are for requirements for fulfilling your major. So credit hours for planning. Let's see if I no, I didn't go into it, but here's how they're used for planning. So the ratio for planning is 3 hours out of class for every 1 credit hour. So basically, if you want to figure out your schedule, then you multiply the number of credit hours you're taking times 4, and that's the number of hours that you should expect to spend on that class. So if you're taking, I'll get into that later, but we'll talk about like the different loads and that kind of stuff. So there are also for hours requirements for fulfilling your major. So at my school, go Trinity University Engineering Science. And Farzan, you might as well start sponsoring the podcast. I'm just saying, Dr. Aminian, you got to start sponsoring the podcast. I'm just kind of shouting you out everywhere. But if you look at the degree programs, what you'll see is the program requirements include classes, but also credit hours. So you see there's all these credit hours, and come on, there should be something. Yes, here we go. Electives necessary to bring the total credit hours earned for the degree to 129. So whenever you're trying to earn a degree and you want to figure out how much it's going to cost for you to earn the degree, you calculate the number of credit hours, and you kind of also account for 4 to 6% inflation every single year on that, and that's kind of how you can financially plan how much your degree is going to cost you. All right. So how many hours is right for you whenever you're talking about planning? Well, 1 hour in class equals 3 hours outside of class. So less than 12 hours is considered a part-time student. That's 48 hours a week dedicated to school out of the possible. Hey Siri, what's 24 times 7? 168 hours in a week, but subtract 8 for studying. 13 to 14 credit hours is considered a light load, but you're considered a full-time student. A 15 to 16 credit hours, which, as you saw on that engineering, really briefly at Trinity's website, is kind of the norm. The engineering students take all the way throughout their 4 years. It's considered a normal load. 17 to 18 credit hours is considered a full load. I had a couple semesters like that. They were not fun. And then 18 credit hours, more than 18 credit hours, is what I'd call insanity. So don't do that. And what I do is, if you're trying to plan out your time inside and outside of class, what I do is I would consider those. Even though you're only taking 1 credit hour in that lab class, treat it whenever you're planning like the full 3 hours, so that way you can see realistically how much time you're going to spend outside of class. Because not all labs are like that, but some labs can be super arduous outside of class. And shout out to my heat transfer and fluid labs and my controls lab, and actually a lot of my labs in college. But yeah, circus lab, yeah, all electronics lab, yep, yeah, all of them took a significant amount of time outside of class. And what I did is I found myself spending sometimes some weeks more time in my labs trying to get stuff done than in my actual classes. So yeah, definitely not absolved from the 3 hours outside of class for every hour in class kind of philosophy. So yeah, that's kind of how you'd see how much is right for you. I'd say if you're working full time, then you're probably going to be less than 12 credit hours. It's going to be really hard for you to be a full time student and a full time employee. Um, if you don't have a lot of extracurriculars, if you're not too spread thin, then maybe you can try to push up in the 17 to 18 credit hours. But a good balance is kind of hovering in that 14 to 16 range is what I recommend. And you kind of know yourself as a student. If you're struggling, then dialing back on your credit hours is one way that you can kind of allow yourself to focus more on your studies and kind of improve your grades. So yeah, and then lastly, degree and cost planning. We talked about it earlier. Credit hours are the requirements for your degree. So 129 hours was what I was required to complete my engineering degree. I think I did like 135 or something insane like that. I could find it somewhere. And then there's also credit hour requirements for general studies coursework. So you look at like you might have to take 3 credit hours in physical education and 9 credit hours in humanities, and I had or like 3 credit hours in religion, so one class in religion, or but it's not just one class. You have to have one class that actually fulfills the number of credit hour requirements. So that's kind of how it works. So I'm just curious. Let's see. Um, let's see how many credit hours. I took in college. I took, I earned a total of 170 credits. That's insane. How many of them were for my degree, though? I couldn't do the math right now, but 170. Shout out. Now, I went into school with like 30, but still, 170 is insane. Oh, why did I care that much in college? But, anyways, that is credit hours. So, hope you found it informative. If you have any questions about what are credit hours, let me know in the chat. But happy to answer them. Send me a message at daniel@engineeringsuccess.com, ENGineeringsuccess.com, and I will answer your questions about credit hours. All right, let's trade back. So now we did our little ditty on Daniel's research. Again, you can read my blog post on credit hours on www.engineeringsuccess.com. If you want to learn more about credit hours, you just go to my page and then you go to latest activity. And then you scroll down past episode 32 and you'll see my blog post on what are credit hours. And you can learn more and more about what credit hours are. So, yeah, share it, like it, put it down. I was not working on Christmas. I was working on December 23rd. So for anybody looking, but yeah, give it a read. All right. Next question. Our first question of the day actually. So our first question is a utility coordinator engineering? That's a great question. So, is a utility coordinator engineering? I applied for a company to be a utility coordinator. I'm a bit confused to whether it is an engineering role. To be more specific, is it recognized by other companies to be a useful engineering role in case I need to jump ship? Background, I'm graduating with a mechanical engineering degree. So this person kind of answers it pretty well, that there are a lot of jobs that kind of straddle the engineering definition. So I work in construction and we have tons of jobs and they apparently work in construction too. Um, we have like engineers doing so many different things. So a utility coordinator for sure could be an engineer. It kind of just depends on what your job description is and you whether or not you can grow in the ways you want to grow. So as a utility coordinator, you kind of just have to read the job description and say, hey, and ask the manager maybe, what are the things that I'm going to be doing? And then you can say, hey, would it, if you want to ask, you can even ask them straight up, hey, would these be things that you would be able to mentor me to get my professional engineering license? Picking that entry level job is can have a lot to do with picking the industry you work in for the rest of your career. So if you're interested in that industry and you're interested in the type of work that people do in that industry, then go for it. And you'll see that as an engineer, you're very marketable, you're very versatile. You can do a lot of different things. And I, my first job out of school was proposal coordinator, which I effectively was a pseudo project engineer running all of our engineering proposals that we submitted. And that experience really prepared me for my next job and then the job I'm in now. So it just kind of depends on what you want to do. And I'd say that if you want to do engineering design work, I'm guessing that you're probably not going to do that as a utility coordinator, but maybe you're working with, I don't know what a utility coordinator is, but you have to kind of figure out what it is and see if those things are interested things that you want to do. They would be now if the title says they need an EIT, then that's a good sign. And here's the here's the job description. EIT certificate or plans to pursue professional licensure. Good. So they want to develop you into professional engineer. Strong organizational skills. You support project managers and engineers with engineering design tasks for various projects. Apply technical expertise and able to work with a project team on conventional and unconventional projects. Yeah, it sounds like you'll be working in teams of engineers as an engineer. And if you're, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of it sounds like it's within the engineering scope, especially if you want to pursue your professional engineering license. So yes, I'd say this job is probably a utility coordinator. And you might be watching this or listening to this and say, why did Daniel pick this question? The reason I picked this question is because I think it's important for people in high school that are considering or college considering engineering to realize that there are jobs out there where you can take a concept like, from beginning to end, and you do that. Like, for example, in my engineering coursework, that's what I did. I had 4 semesters of engineering design coursework, and that's what I did. I found a problem and I solved it. I took it all the way from problem to concept to troubleshooting to presenting, and there are jobs like that, R&D type jobs in industry where engineers can do that kind of thing, but that's not every job. In fact, a lot of those jobs are done people with maybe a little bit more education or specialized education, like a master's or a PhD. Not saying you can't get into that. Maybe you work for a startup and it's easier for you to get into that. But a lot of engineering is playing a part in a much larger thing. Like, for example, engineering consulting in my industry, you're not the original equipment manufacturer. So if you need to solve a problem for, say, for example, Budweiser comes to you and says, hey, we're going to make more beer, then we're going to make it this way. As the engineering consultant, you're not going down into like the technology to how they ferment the beer and there's a station and permitting and housing and power and um, utilities that connect into these things to run the systems, and then you run all this, you build all the system together, and you work with the construction firm to make sure that they're able to get the drawings so that they can build it, and you're taking things from, it's just a lot more moving pieces, so you're not taking it from, you're not taking the Coca-Cola from the individual molecules and then taking it to production. There's very specific things that you can do, and in that big chain, there's engineers that are involved in purchasing and sourcing the the original equipment. There's engineers that are involved in negotiating the contracts that go into that. There's engineers that are involved in designing the mechanical systems, the electrical systems, the foundations, the structures that hold up the equipment, the permits, the interface with other contractors that are working in that area, dealing with logistics, dealing with customs, tariffs, duties. Engineers, other people can get into those roles, but a lot of those jobs are also done by engineers. And for example, I'm an engineer and I work in contracts, and engineers that work in change management and work in estimating how much the whole thing is going to cost. There's engineers that are involved in so many different aspects, and that's just engineering consulting as an industry. So there's so many different titles that may not say engineer 1, engineer 2, engineer 3, but you can do engineering. And in fact, I'd say that there's more of those jobs than there are design engineer jobs. So I'd say that, is it engineering? Well, you got an engineering degree, you learn how to solve problems, and if it is something that's interesting to you, then you can grow into it as an engineer, and it's probably going to be, you can, the things you're most interested in are the things that are going to be the most lucrative to you. So yes, I'd say it is engineering, and this is one of my common rants. I kind of say this kind of thing a lot, but yeah, so you can do anything. So in that same spirit, oh gosh, I saved another question, and this one was, why don't engineers rule the world? And as you can see, it's since been removed. Uh, but I saved it anyways. The question is, why don't engineers rule the world? And they use a technical standpoint already, but we are at the whim of politicians and business people in all other aspects. We all know the difficult problems the world faces, and we are all motivated and smart enough to tackle them. The only thing stopping us is bureaucracy and money not going towards the right projects. I understand that is what politicians are for, but that clearly has not been working out. I always believe that engineers in all fields are always paid the most because they are hard to replace and find. However, I'm starting to think that they are paid the most to keep them in line. If engineers nationwide started getting paid less, it would have drastic consequences. The people that know the most, are the most passionate, and are the most capable would have reason to revolt and can do substantial damage to all aspects of industry. So they pay us large amounts so that we continue working for them rather than taking over control ourselves. How far are we going to let these things get worse before we come in and fix it ourselves? Why are we letting the greedy and idiots of the world make the decisions for the world that we created? Why haven't we done anything to stop this? We are fewer in numbers, but we already have agents in every aspect of the world and can tear it down from within easily. Why shouldn't we be dictating the direction of humanity? This is a genuine question, as it boils my blood every time I'm reminded of some moron in charge of something he doesn't understand. We need to rise up and take what is ours in this world. Nice. I hope y'all like the way that I read that, by the way. Um, I'd say first of all, these engineers are involved in the just look at the business level. I think that there's a statistic on this, but most Fortune 500 CEOs have engineering degrees. With like, there was a whole article about this. Um, like, here you go. Why do many engineering students become Fortune 500 CEOs? Um, Most top performing CEOs now have engineering degrees than MBAs. Most common majors of Fortune 500 CEOs, engineering. I mean, the rise of engineer turned CEOs. Can engineers become CEOs? I'd say that engineers are making a lot of the decisions in the world. And maybe these are engineers that have different levels of scope of understanding of what they're doing. For example, um, you're not going a CEO engineer might not know how to design XYZ thing or XYZ sub process, but they know that that sub process goes into bigger processes, and then they make know how that interfaces with their business cases and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think engineers already kind of do run the world. Now there is the politicians, and when I say about that, that kind of frustrates me too. I'll be honest that there's these politicians that in my head um don't I don't understand why they do the things they do, but my philosophy with that is I don't know what I don't know. And I don't want to. It's dangerous, right, to have an arrogant mentality about how useful and valuable somebody else's way of existing or making a living is. I feel like um I think that these politicians do add tremendous value, and it is simply we don't know what they're doing for us. There's just so many things that are going on, and I couldn't do half the things that all of our politicians do. So I would not want to do that kind of thing. So um, why haven't we done anything to stop this? We're fewer in numbers, but we already have an agent in every aspect of the world and can tear it down from within easily. I mean, I don't. I think that's such an elitist mentality. I don't think that engineers are the best for everything. Now, engineers teach you how to solve problems, and yeah, engineers that learn and try to familiarize themselves with the subject matter that they want to work in. An engineer that's passionate about global politics probably could be good at global politics, but not. I don't want Chad, the bridge designer, negotiating a prisoner swap with a foreign country. Uh, I'm just saying. So, and also, I don't think that engineers get paid the most. Um, I'd say that people that work their way up in the ranks in the companies are probably the ones that are making the most money. Um, I just I don't know. I just don't understand this. This was just an interesting question. I mean, here's the other thing. Um, Engineers, they get paid really well, but the engineer is not the only one that is valuable in a company. And I think that it's really it's a really toxic mentality to have that kind of superiority complex as an engineer working for a company, because all those jobs exist because they're important for the business case. So what I'd take away from this, if I was talking to a young engineer that might have this mentality, is that you need to recognize value and you need to be humble whenever you work with your coworkers and you talk to your coworkers about what they do, and that humility will go a long way for you in your career. Valuing others, under trying to understand and find the value in other things around you and why things are done the way they are, even if you don't think that their degree to get to that position was as rigorous, is a really good way to help yourself be a better employee. So I would, if you have this mentality or a similar mentality to this of elitism as an engineer over other roles in the company, I highly encourage you to just take the time to talk to other people and learn about what they do, what it adds to the company, and that will make you a better employee and therefore a better engineer for the company you work with. So that was kind of all over the place, as is most of the podcast, to be honest. I think I just filmed this podcast to listen to the sound of my own voice. But alas, you listen to it, you watch it. So thank you so much for supporting the podcast. All right, next question. Next question is, how can you combine writing with engineering? And here it is. Hmm. I studied at a technical university, but I'm truly interested in writing. Is there a way that I can creatively combine writing slash find my way out of engineering and get into writing? Thanks. Do engineers read it all? Question mark. LOL. I studied cognitive science at a technical university, lots of computer science, and also classical piano at a music academy. I like writing. I know I'm a mess, but writing helps me sort it out. Is Wait, cognitive science isn't is that engineering? Is cognitive science engineering? Oh, I guess it's computer science. Is it considered? I guess it's a new thing. I've never heard of it before. Um, I'd say that yeah, engineers have to do a lot of writing because even if it's just emails, which is um, kind of interesting, but yeah, I mean, you have to be an effective communicator in everything you do, and some of that includes writing. So engineers do a lot of writing, and the engineers that are able to write and communicate things well over emails help us avoid meetings. And those are our favorite engineers, I will have to say. Those are the best engineers, the ones that can help eliminate meetings. So if you're a good and effective communicator over writing, that will help you be more successful as an engineer. And also, you also study classic piano at a music academy. Hey, I also studied classic piano, so shout out to that. But yeah, and you asked about creative writing. Um, No, I mean, what I'd say is that if you want to really kind of grow that muscle in creative writing, maybe, I don't know, not everything that you are passionate about has to be something you do for work. I'm passionate about content creation and podcasting and other people's careers, and I don't do that for work. If I did that for my job, it would kind of actually inhibit my ability to do this podcast for my career. So, what I'd say is if you enjoy your career, pursue it and use your skills in writing to make yourself a better engineer. And then maybe also have a hobby and something that you pursue on the side. And maybe that hobby turns into something that you can make money off of. And then it replaces your career, which could theoretically happen with this podcast. Maybe if I tried to increase my content quality. But hey, I'm doing transitions now between scenes and I have background music whenever I step away from my computer. So maybe that's a little bit better. But yeah, I would say, just be a really effective writer in your work. Take pride in your communications and the way you write, and then also pursue it as a hobby. But yeah, you can combine writing with engineering. Um, some specific roles in engineering, maybe engineers that help write specs, um, engineers that help write SOPs, standard operating procedures, engineers, that you're going to have to write plans. So as if you work in consulting,